Hello, hello, hello. We are making a video and I want to talk about the beautiful, beautiful draconian and reptilian men. I don't know if that's the same, but I think no, it's not the same. There are many, many different species of bipedal humanoid evolved dinosaurs. Okay, so and I really strongly believe that these dinosaurs and that this the Silurian hypothesis that was developed by a scientist, biologist, paleobiologist, archaeologist, and he studied the dinosaur era very, very rigorously, and they have examined the bone structure of the recovered skeletons and so on. And they discovered several of those bipedal dinosaurs that lived during the Jurassic or the early Jurassic, and that was about 100 million years ago in Europe. And there was this one particular bipedal dinosaur that had that extra brain mass, like the hat, sort of like this here, the extra cortex, all the way. It didn't go back, it went up like that. They looked a little bit, I mean, if you want to compare them to an animal today, a little bit like an ostrich. They don't know if they had hair or feathers, so they didn't have wings, they had little crippled arms. That's what they had. Tiny little crippled arms with little cripply hands, like a Contagon baby. That's how they look like, with enormously large legs, with huge leg muscles and big feet and all of that. So, but definitely more related to an ostrich than to us, of course, because so the ostrich also has evolved from some kind of, I don't know, bipedal dinosaur or at least another reptile. So a reptile that was already very similar to that. Somewhere a cousin of them. So that's what I think. So, and they were large. They were also about the size of an ostrich. Those ostriches are huge birds. But they don't fly, of course. They have... What kind of wings do they even have? They must have little wings that don't even move much. So, and just very, very large muscular legs, which move them forward very fast. So they are obviously prey animals and they have to run very fast. On the other hand, the bipedal dinosaur that was discovered by that archaeologist, those were predator animals. They were hunting prey. So they were hunting other dinosaurs, smaller dinosaurs and other reptiles, and must be very, very early mammals that they were hunting. So at that time there were already mammals. So I didn't know that until just recently. I watched more documentaries. I guess the scientists themselves weren't sure whether during the Jurassic and other and even the era before that there were already very early mammals. The mammals, they split off from a reptile, not from a dinosaur. A dinosaur is one lineage of reptiles. So, but there were small reptiles also next to the dinosaurs, to the early dinosaurs. There must have been, I don't know, 200 million years back, or I'm guessing now on this. I don't know for sure. I'm not an expert. I'm just watching different things from different resources on these things. So apparently there was a reptile next to early dinosaurs that also have come from reptiles, that are also, of course, reptiles. But there was one reptile, small reptile, that gave birth to an egg that was more like a placenta. So the placenta that is around an embryo is an egg. That's the eggshell, basically. But in mammals, and particularly in the very early mammals, that started to soften. So when they gave birth to an egg, which that is what reptiles do, then the eggshell was already really soft, like a placenta. And in humans and dogs, that the baby is born without the placenta around it, but the placenta will come out afterwards, because the baby has already shed that placenta on its way out. So that's what happens. And obviously, that's when the placenta, it's just a membrane, it's just a very, very, very weak membrane in the end, So during pregnancy, that placenta is what feeds that baby, So that is that bubble, that safe bubble in the womb. But yeah, so that was the transition from reptile to mammal. So everything has its very, very gradual transition. Obviously, there are no sudden, quick changes in evolution. Everything evolves very gradually. And very, very much like, if there is one advantage, even if it's a mild advantage over something else, then this mild advantage will, in some occasions, have more success than the other ones, and therefore give that species a more safe situation to live in, okay, and to proceed in. That's how it works, okay, and it's very interesting, or very, very minute changes that are happening in evolution. Not sudden big changes, okay, so, and that all takes an enormous amount of time, obviously. So, but this one bipedal dinosaur that the archaeologist was studying, the skeleton of that, this they can see from the bone structure. They had enough of the skeleton and from the skull also to see that this particular bipedal dinosaur had so much brain mass. That dinosaur had like 3 times the brain mass than its cousins of the other bipedal dinosaurs. So they were also almost about the same height, like an ostrich. And when you look at an ostrich, you see that the head is very, very small, actually, compared to the body. While with those bipedal dinosaurs, I forgot the name now. I'm going to have to study that again and look this up again. The scientist's name and the name of the dinosaurs. Those are names that we can easily forget. Just could not remember these particular names. But I have to write it down. When I write it down, I take notes of it. When I take notes and then do take a brief note or write a little essay about it or something in my files, then it's easier for me to remember. And particularly if I create some kind of what they call a donkey bridge, where I link up something else with that name. Okay, when you link up, if you want to remember something, a specific name, and you're really intent on remembering a specific name, then you have to create an association with that name. You have to associate it at least with one other thing. And if you do that, you will be much more successful in remembering it. This is very important information regarding learning. So I tested that many times for myself, and it definitely works. So, but anyway, that particular dinosaur, that had a much, much wider, larger neck and a much larger head, more like a dog. So dog head, kind of like a Doberman. And then that with this enormous brain that was going straight up like this, like almost like a cylinder head on top. Huge brain. And from there, that's what I strongly believe. From there, it just went further and further. The Blue God agrees. 1, 1, 1, 1. So there you have it. It's the truth, what I'm saying. The Blue God acknowledges that this is in fact the truth. Okay, I go by this. Okay, these number signals. Okay, when I talk about something and the number appears, these number sequences. Okay, that's the symbol of the Blue God telling me that's the truth. Okay, what you're saying, and I am always protecting you. So I strongly believe that they were way smarter than the other cousins of the bipedal dinosaurs. All these bipedal Tyrannosaurus rex, for example, much larger than that one, but not as smart. Okay, so of course the Tyrannosaurus rex could kill those, the ones that then kept evolving, the smarter ones. They could kill them because they were like 10 times their size. But they survived those because they knew how to hide themselves in caves. They knew how to hide themselves away from the Tyrannosaurus Rex. So, which was, I think, probably their main predator. So they were also predators, but the predators were also hunting each other, obviously. They were hunting any living being they could catch, obviously. That was pretty brutal, but it's still brutal. We just think it isn't. It's still very, very, very brutal, and I'm getting to this in a moment. So from there, this extra high-rise building of a brain that these dinosaurs gave them an incredible advantage over other animals. They were able to outsmart them. They were able to outsmart the Tyrannosaurus Rex. They were able to find food better. They were able to just figure things out when there was a climate shift or flood. They were the first ones that figured things out. And then that went on from there, that was the evolution. They got smarter and smarter and smarter, and then they also, I think that the arms started to grow. They got, I don't know how many fingers they have, but I think they have 5 fingers. And then the whole body shifted to a humanoid form very gradually that happened. But they had a scaly skin, okay? And then different tribes, different races, different colors evolved, with snaky skin, scaly, crocodile type of skin, different types of rough, scaly skin structure, okay? And then eventually the scales became different colors also, even iridescent, and even started to have a mother of pearl shine in it, a metallic shine, and all kinds of those, they just had some kind of a metal deposit in those keratin formations of the scales. So, or a horn type of material like hair, like our hair is, and our fingernails, okay? So I guess that kind of formed on the top of the skin, on the skin surface. And it looks really nice. Looks really, really, really awesome. I have a fake croc, like a ghost green purse that is absolutely fantastic. I'm so lucky. I found that for $10 at Walmart. That was about in 2011 or so when I found that. I was so lucky because, my gosh, that I've been wanting this type of purse for a very long time. I envisioned it also. And there it was, exactly the way I wanted it, and exactly fully whole food Whole food vegan. No, you cannot eat it, but it's vegan. It is 100% skin free, 100% synthetic materials. And not only did I find this one purse, I found two others, in one in purple, also a fake croc, and one in pink, a fake croc, all at Walmart. Each one $10 was on sale. I was so lucky. My gosh. Those are my favorite purses. I love these. I love those purses so much. And they look absolutely amazing. I mean, any expert will immediately say, this is a cheap, ultra cheap imitation of some sort. But I don't care. Yeah, I think those amazing purses. Amazing. I don't want a Birkin bag. I don't want a bag that was made from 4 crocodiles. Are you kidding me? They cut 4 crocodiles up, and they only take the scaly skin from the belly part, where obviously the scales and the skin is the softest. That is an unbelievable atrocity to do this. Okay, that's immoral. It is unethical. It's criminal to do that. So I'm so 100% against it. I wouldn't even want that for free. I would decline. Now, if someone gave me a Birkin bag for my birthday and they mean really well, I say, and here is the revolving door. I'm sending you right back to the store. Please get your money back. Okay? I don't want it. I don't want it for free. I wouldn't even take it if someone paid me for it. I would not. I don't want it. I don't want that in my house. Okay? I don't want it in my life. Same with the fur coat or any. I don't want these things. I don't want a tortured, slaughtered animal in my house, and or the remaining parts of that animal, the skin and the hair or whatever. I don't want that. I think that's an atrocity that would make me depressed every time I look at that. So I have to go into this side note. I'm sorry, I always have to do this. Whenever I talk about something, I have to talk about the utmost importance of ethics when it comes to those kind of things. So I have 3 fake croc purses that are absolutely stellar, and they look really cheapy and everything and so on, but I don't care because I think they are awesome. I am extremely happy with them, and no animal had to be slaughtered for it. Okay, so there is no animal part, nothing from an animal in it. Everything is 100% synthetic. 100% synthetic materials. The whole purse, every one of my purses. I have bought, I don't know, 15 or 20 purses, and they all are 100% synthetic materials, and that's the only way I want it. And my belts are too, and my shoes are too. Okay, and if I ever find a synthetic croc pants and jacket, I would buy that, but I have not seen it so far. So I also have I have 2 synthetic leather jackets. Synthetic. 100% synthetic. I do not wear animal skins. I'm absolutely opposed to it. So, but to take 4 crocodiles to make one of these disgusting Birkin bags, that's just an atrocity. And I hold everyone accountable who wears those. Okay, so give those away to a homeless person and never buy something like this again. Okay, absolutely, absolutely important information. So, but these croc bags that I have that are 100% synthetic, I just want to emphasize on that. That is how these dinosaur skins looked like, or that's how many of them evolved then, particularly when they became. So I think when they were dinosaurs, they may have had some feathers, who knows, I don't know, or like rudimentary feathers. I don't know what the climate was. I heard the climate was tropical, so they may not have needed feathers or hair. So the skin was probably quite scaly, but maybe more like camouflaged, more like sort of like a camo ghost green type of pattern or something. That's what I'm guessing. And then as they evolved, they grew different colors, and they became different races, and they became different species also, and cousin species. And that's what happens in evolution. You know, they may have had the same ancestor, and then they split off from there. And also, as they migrate, they start to take on different traits, and they adapt differently, and then eventually become different species. But it takes a very long time, of course, to become different species where they can no longer intermix, or where they might be intermixed, but then their offspring can't have offspring. So it can taper out in this way into completely different species. And then very gradually they become a bipedal humanoid species, okay? Or one of them that are on that particular lineage. And then as they grow, then there's always some that branch off right and left into all directions. But one particular lineage from that dinosaur that just keeps on evolving and cousin species break off, and it keeps on evolving and evolving, and eventually becomes a bipedal humanoid, and eventually becomes different bipedal humanoid species. And that's how we have all these different types of reptilian humans. I'm just extrapolating on this. I don't know for sure, but I'm just diving into the possibility and into what makes sense to me personally. It might not make sense to anyone else, what I'm saying here. Okay. But this makes sense to me 100%, what I'm saying. Because this is how nature works, okay? And humans are beginning to see this possibility now, okay? Very few people in the beginning started to get this idea that the scientists, the archaeologist who was working on that bipedal dinosaur skeleton was developing this was extrapolating this into, or not just extrapolating into the future, but into the past in terms of how this could have evolved and how this also could have evolved into the future, okay? From where it could have evolved and in which direction it could have evolved. And where are those reptiles? Where are they? Okay. So, and why are they shape-shifting? That's the hard part to wrap your mind around. How in the world did that come about? I mean, it's like it's already extremely wild, isn't it? That that there is a humanoid species besides us, humans, Homo sapien, that there is a repto sapien out there. I don't know how they would call him. That is very elusive, that does not show itself, or that's not disclosing itself to us as what it is. Why is that? Maybe because they want to run the world? Maybe is that why? So I have so many questions in this regard. Why are they shape-shifting? I mean, it's already so intense that they have evolved from that dinosaur, right? And they live parallel to us. And they live in hiding. They live underground. That's what I believe. They went underground. Why did they go underground? Okay, these are legitimate questions to ask. What happened there? Did they cause a nuclear disaster? Okay, they had that much time on their hands to evolve. Okay, so apparently when they got to the stage that we are at right now, technologically and also brain-wise and all of that, and that was when our lineage was at its absolute infancy. That was when our lineage had just barely become a mammal. When there were, when our lineage was about the size of a hamster, okay, trying to survive out there with just a little bit hair, scaly skin and just a little bit hair. I don't know if they had scaly skin or the skin was different, rougher and all of that. But they were hiding in caves. So those are on our lineage. That's what evolved into humans. And that was 200 million years back. So the reptiles from the dinosaur with the big brain, they had already evolved from that dinosaur. I'm guessing now, I don't know. But they had already evolved into, I could be completely wrong about the time, but I'm guessing now that while the mammal was just evolving, was just starting, this reptile had already come to the stage of evolution that we are in right now. Okay, bipedal humanoid. They had scales. Their skin looked like my croc purse, and probably shiny also. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I saw one, okay? I am not making this up. I really am not. I talked about this a lot also in my videos, and I talk about this with people in writing because I'm absolutely fascinated about this. I just recently found a girl on the Jeff Mara show. He was interviewing her, and I'm absolutely ultra fascinated with that. I watched that to the very end. There was no ADHD while I was watching that show. Okay, so because that's just so infinitely fascinating. It's astonishing. I didn't know that there was someone who had such contact, such close contact with a reptile. So now I have endless questions to that woman. And I wrote her an email, and we're here at this house now where we don't have internet, but we're coming back tomorrow. Today is the 19th. Tomorrow is the 20th. We're coming back tomorrow. So I hope she writes me, and I will write her back, and I would like to get to know her, and I have just endless questions for her. endless. I wished we could do a video conversation also for the internet, because I think this is an important subject that should be discussed by people. So all of this is just infinitely fascinating, and I think that at some point these, when they were at the stage like we are now, they may have caused a nuclear catastrophe where they had to go underground. And then they just evolved there underground, and probably with iridescent skin and all of that. Maybe with glowing skin, yeah. Who knows? Because in underground caves, I heard there are bioluminescent species growing, mushrooms and different things that are not dependent on sunlight, and they can evolve where they don't need the sunlight anymore, where they have hot springs underground that they can swim in and live from. The hot spring water has all the nutrients that a biological organism needs. I love hot springs. I'm crazy about it. I'm a hot springer. Totally. And Paul is too. And baby dog is too. We went swimming in a hot spring the other day. It was incredible. Absolutely. I'm so glad we went out there. It's a long drive, but it's well worth it. So that's why we want to move out there, because that's where I want to be. That's the place on earth where I want to be. And one night I just left the side door open at night, and there was no one else, and I looked into the sky as I was lying on the side and right in front of the door, and Paul and baby dog were sleeping already, and I was looking in the sky, and I could see the Milky Way and everything without any light pollution. And it was just unbelievably beautiful. This was a real Kailash experience for me. Incredible. This is true nature power. Okay, and that felt like I was out in space. It felt like I was in heaven. That's what it felt like. So maybe these dinosaurs, these humanoids, these raptors, they evolved in the caves, and they lost track with time, and maybe then the next generations, they were told, don't go anywhere up to the surface, you get burned by the sun. And so it must have taken them much, much longer than the dissipation of the nuclear waste until they finally decided, oh, maybe some of the curious ones decided to pop up in the Middle East, in Jerusalem, come out of the cave, right? And somewhere in what they called Sumeria. What's Iran? Those people are not different, okay? That are going to war with each other. They are all coming. It's just a theory I have. They are coming, and I say this with love, okay? We all have Repto in us. Let's not make any mistake about it, okay? Just a little percentage, maybe less than 1%, okay? Or maybe 0.1% Repto or something. That's enough Repto to Repto your mind around it. My brain has to do these things. I don't know why. It's just some kind of mental illness. But that is what I'm guessing. So, I mean, and then why do we have this little bit of Repto in us? I have to explain this from scratch. Okay, I'm getting overheated. I have to take this hat off. So, my hair is all crazy now. So, this is just my personal hypothesis on it, okay? That's all I can say. I don't know if this is true. It could be all wrong. But I'm guessing on this that at some point, some of the very courageous raptors, they came up to the surface, out of the cave, of the underground caves. They came up to the surface and they decided, I want to check this out. I want to see the sun. I want to see what my ancestor self said. I want to see if that's true. They must have been so curious. So they saw the sun and they decided, oh boy, my eyeballs are burning out. And maybe some of them went blind because they did that, right? Because they're totally not used to that. So they developed sunglasses. The first sunglasses were not made by humans. They were made by reptiles in Sumeria. This is so funny. But it makes perfect sense to me, okay? So they must have made really, really dark shades. So like this the super incognito mafia shades. That's where all of that comes from, like the stalker shades. So they came out there, and then they had to wear clothes, of course, or they would get sunburned. And then very gradually they built, first built some cave systems like Gobekli Tepe, for example. and people said that they haven't even found an end to these tunnel caves. So down. So it apparently it keeps on going. So what I think is that there are massive tunnel caves and humongous, how do they call it, lake caves and hot spring caves, huge, deep underground, and they must have created freeway tunnels already, long time before the human species ever evolved. Okay, to ever, I mean, when the human species was still at a rat stage, the raptors had already developed these underground freeways, and that's what I'm guessing at. And so huge underground system that's still there today. And but what humans are finding are things that are much closer to the surface, of course, because humans usually don't go that deep into underground tunnels. I don't know if they could even sustain it, if they could even survive going that deep down when there is a completely different air, and that might have real high concentration of carbon dioxide or sulfur gases and so on, where the raptors are used to it. They have evolved. But I don't know if a human could handle it. You'd have to go down with an oxygen tank, and if you go very deep into the earth. And there are some stalagmite caves where people have gone into, like in South America, for example. There are some cave systems but that are quite deep, but I'm talking about a cave system that is much deeper than that, even so deep that the temperature in there is between 80 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That's how deep. Okay, where they don't ever need a heater. They're living on geothermal heat and geothermal water, okay, which is absolutely lovely and beautiful. It's like a tropical climate, and they have bioluminescent organisms growing there that they eat. Okay, they must be eating these mushrooms. So that's what's going on, and then have they're developed into incredible technology, all underground. And in order to come to the surface, I guess they must have put on different clothes or other things, or gloves or a mask or whatever, And who knows? I mean, you can extrapolate. You can just think what makes sense, and then go into those directions of what could have happened. How could this have evolved? How could they have behaved? What kind of people or what kind of brains could have evolved out of that? Were they all mean? Obviously not. Okay, were there caring ones among them? Of course. They must be having some estrogen and oxytocin in their bodies, or they wouldn't be able to nurture their babies. So love is a necessity in evolution. A necessity. Without it would not work, obviously. I know that a snake and an iguana feel love because I had them on my chest. I had 2 times I had an iguana on my chest. One time I lived with a girl who had an iguana, and she handed him over to me. I had him on my chest. A lovely being, and he was very content, very, very content, just wanted to stay on my chest. Very, very lovely being. I felt so sorry for him. He wanted love. So I hope she petted him a lot. He needed that, okay? So, and one time at Venice Beach in LA, I was dating this Latino guy that was working with Hollywood producers, and he would regularly go out there to Venice Beach to show off his animals, and people would come and take a photo with his animals, and he would charge them for that, which is all ridiculous. But yeah, that guy, I didn't get along with him. He was just way too greedy and too aggressive. But a couple of times I hung out with him, and I had this iguana on my chest, very large iguana, male iguana, very, very large, beautiful, beautiful being. But that iguana was very sociable, and he liked being on my chest, but he was like, "Nah, I need to get down there. I need to get down because I need to go over to the boardwalk. I need to get among the people." And so, like 4 or 5 times I had to run after him, and I had to put him back on my chest and come back and hold him. And that guy, he wanted me to keep an eye on the iguana because he was so busy with all the other animals and customers and people coming over and asking questions. So I felt really, I was worried about that iguana. He kept on wanting to go onto the Venice boardwalk among all these other people. And what I noticed is that the people walking by him, so many people walking by him, they didn't even pay attention to him. It's like, hello, there's an iguana among you. Anyone can please look and pay some attention? But they don't look. They don't look at any being. They're so in their heads. They're so in their minds. They cannot even see this beautiful large iguana. It's like a small dinosaur among them on the boardwalk, just walking along there with a slithering tail. And so I run after him. I put him on my arm again, and he is like, "Why do you do this?" And I can telepathically communicate with him. And he was like, "I like you, but I want to be independent. I want to be out here. It's interesting. All these people, they don't even look at me. I don't know why, but it's interesting." So he was just very, very eager to be around all these people. But that was not safe for him at all. Not there at Venice Beach boardwalk with people sometimes on roller skates and skateboards. And no, that's not safe at all. But I know for sure that and then the yellow, very, 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 very large boa constrictor, a female that he put around my neck, very heavy. And that felt so, so nice. Oh, I'll never forget that. Yellow scales, Like my croc purse, also shiny too. Yellow, shiny boa constrictor with yellow, shiny scales. Amazing being. And I never wanted to let go of that, of those animals. I wanted to keep them on my chest forever. Felt so, so nice. And they loved it. They absolutely love to be loved. And I tell you that with utmost conviction. Okay? They all need love. Whether they are reptiles, or snakes, or crocodiles, or iguanas, or Komodo dragons, or dogs, or cats, or giraffes, or hippopotamus, or opossums, or kangaroos, doesn't matter, or whales, or dolphins, or elephants, or rhinos, it doesn't matter what animal you have on your skin, okay? They want that touch, they want that contact. It's not sexual, it is a contact from one being to another that feels really, really good to them, okay? That creates oxytocin. I don't know about the banana slug out there. They get to be almost 10 inches long and very thick. They look like very old bananas with brown spots and all of that. They're absolutely beautiful beings. And you can pick them up, and they're very sluggish, and they move real slowly, and sometimes they scrape my skin with their mouth. They're trying to eat the skin cells, the dead skin cells and all of that. They're trying to eat, but it doesn't hurt. But it feels real cute. Not all of them do it, but some of them do it. So, and I feel like they stretch on my skin, and the tentacles are all out, and they're tasting my skin, and they're moving, and they seem relaxed, and they seem like they like it. They really like it. One time I had a Pacific great salamander on my hand, and I let him walk up onto my shoulder from across my whole arm, and that salamander really, really enjoyed that skin contact. And I know the banana slug enjoys that skin contact. All beings enjoy that skin contact. It's the truth. I'm giving you the truth. Insects too, okay? All beings like it. All. They feel it. So this is universal. Love is universal. It's the truth, okay? So those reptiles, they may have evolved differently with different fierceness, and there was more will to power required, probably, for the survival, right? As Nietzsche said, nature is will to power. So, but they needed that even more in order to survive. But not in a sense of being psychopathic, okay, but in a sense of survival of the fittest, survival of, you have to be absolutely determined on what you want, and you have to take what you want. And you cannot be You cannot be stuck in some kind of religion or some kind of fake morals or some kind of ideology that believes in wokeness or in I understand when people, of course, I understand when people have a crippled child and they want to do everything they can to give that child as long and as good a life possible. And they're taking a lot of self-sacrifice for that. I respect them for that. I respect them. On the other hand, Dr. Peter Singer, philosopher, got under a lot of fire for saying that parents should have the right to terminate life in utero, also partial birth, and also after birth, if that child's life is in some way impaired, if in some way crippled or miserable. If that child is not fit for living or having a life free from pain and all of that, free from suffering, if that child is suffering because of a genetic defect or something, that the parents should have the right to terminate that life. That is what Peter Singer believes. And I understand where he's coming from with that, 100%. And people probably really hate me for saying this. So, but don't hate me. I understand the people that want to sacrifice themselves for the crippled child and have no good of a life themselves, because they have to do all kinds of things to accommodate the life of that crippled child for probably maybe even 20 years. Okay. And they don't have a very long lifespan, obviously, because some of them have to be on feeding tubes even. And the parents will still do anything they can. A lot of them are very religious, okay? And they do it because they think they have to, okay? And I don't know if I could. Okay? I don't know. I have never had this incredible unfortune happen to me. Okay? I decided not to have children, so for different reasons. That was also one reason, because what if I have a crippled child? Then what? Then that would be an unbelievable dilemma situation. What would I do in that situation? So me already with mental illness and being overwhelmed at a drop of a hat, so but I'd be overwhelmed with a normal child too, the demands of a normal child. So I mean, I would have the child on me 24 hours, and would constantly breastfeeding. I mean, that's obvious. That phase would probably be the easiest, actually. What would scare me is when the child grows older and will have to be forced to go to school or hang out with the wrong people or something like this, where you have to worry. Or would I give the child everything that the child needs in terms of psychology. Would I be too mentally ill to make the child happy? So these questions went through my mind, because my mother was obviously way too mentally ill to take care of me. So she had to have nannies. I grew up with nannies, and they were also mentally ill. So it was a toxic world that I grew up in. Not good, obviously. So regarding the reptiles, they could have evolved in all kinds of different directions. With that much time to evolve, with that much more time to evolve, we are still in the beginning stage in our evolution. They have already been through this 4 times, basically, time-wise. Okay, so of course they could develop skills that are way beyond our imagination, that tap into the quantum realm, okay, just with their brain alone. So what if they are able to tap into the quantum realm and voluntarily, like an ascetist or something, or some kind of advanced yogi, be able to make themselves invisible, or be able to go through create a portal, right, and go through it just with their body, or be able to make other people feel sedated around them, or be able to shapeshift into a different form. Okay, so there's no telling what they may have evolved, all of that. And all of this as the will to power, as the survival instinct, as a means to protect themselves from a predator like the Tyrannosaurus Rex, or other predators, or other dangers. And they may have also developed technology where they can live permanently in spacecraft under the ocean, in the Earth's caves, and from the ocean be able to shoot up into the sky, and maybe even with a spacecraft go into the sky and go from there into a portal and go very far away, and maybe they're even intergalactic already, and they come back and forth, but they started out here on Earth. So, and they spread into different species from there. I do not think that the Pleiadian ETs are related to them. I believe the Pleiadian ETs come from a different galaxy, or at least very, very far away planets. And the reason why I believe that we have a little bit of all of them is because they have all come here to Earth, or they have all come to a place somewhere here on Earth where they created a settlement, and where they started to do the Garden Eden gene splicing projects. Okay. All of them. And I think that's what humanoids do. It doesn't matter how they evolved. They could have evolved from stardust, completely independently parallel from one another. And they will all eventually come to that same stage of evolution. Bipedal with arms and hands. With a thumb just like this, where they are able to do precision work with their fingers. And the big brain. Okay, that combination is necessary, and when they have that, they will inevitably come to the point of discovering DNA, and doing genetic research. And at some point they did this long before humans could ever even think about something like this. Long before humans could even think beyond tool making, primitive tool making, and thinking of food. Okay. Where they already had all of this. And that's when they took the early ape humans and they created hybrids. That's what I think. And then those hybrids went out and procreated with ape humans. Because they wanted the ape humans to become smarter so that they can work for them in their laboratories and so on. And the reptiles did the same. That's what I think. And there's a higher concentration of reptiles in the Middle East, and they have very high percentage of reptile in them. But I still believe that there are reptiles that are 100% reptile. And I believe that the 100% reptiles, they want to stay 100% reptiles. Because I believe that they probably like to have a mistress with smooth skin and all of that. And they wouldn't mind having a child with her, but they also want to keep their lineage going. Their pure lineage going, that's what I think. Because they're way smarter than we are. So they don't want to sabotage that. But they're definitely experimenting with all the other stuff too. So, and they use the chimeras, the hybrids, to work for them and do services for them and so on, and they can outsmart them very, very good and trick them into doing services for them, which is all unethical. But then that girl said that she met a male and a female reptile, but more in a telepathic type of way. And they revealed to her that they are very picky on which human they interact with. So they have very, very high standards for the human that they deem worthy to interact with. Okay. But is that a double standard? That is my question. Because do we have some say in which reptile we want to interact with? Do we have the right to say, you have to earn also my respect? Yeah. Of course we do. The iguana too has the right to say, I don't know if I want to be on your chest right now because I want to be at the Venice boardwalk. So that is my decision. But you're so much bigger than me, so that's why this is like amor fati, I have to accept that you're picking me back up. But am I worthy of his respect if I keep picking him up when he really wants to go onto the Venice boardwalk? So maybe in his opinion, I am not so worthy of his respect. But from my mother perspective, that doesn't matter if he respects me or not. I have to pick him up because I care about him, okay? Because I care about all beings, the reptiles too. But just wanted to say, the repto, if they think, and I understand they are picky, they're picky about interacting with people. I don't blame them for that. But they have to understand that we have the same rights, okay? And the animals have the same rights to respect, love, fairness, happiness, okay, health, the same basic beingness rights. We all have the same basic beingness rights. So that's what I want to say, and this is very important to me. Okay, we need to free the pigs from gestation crates and from factory farms. Very important. Peace and love for all beings.